Welcome, everyone. This is Steve Bennett, and hopefully, those of you who are on this line know that this is the long distance preseason webinar leading up to the Fall Sports Festival. The first couple slides we had, those of you who were seeing the slide going back and forth, this is just to acknowledge and make people aware of some of our fundraising opportunities, not only at the state level, but also some fund sharing with the county programs. So we appreciate you joining us this evening. Again, my name is Steve Bennett, Senior Director of Competition. I'll be going through some of the information tonight. Also, we have Mike Sarnowski, our Vice President of Sports Operations, joining us. He'll talk on some specifics as well. The other person I would like to introduce is Ryan Kelchner. He was with us for a while, serving in an AmeriCorps position, serving Western Maryland in the Volunteer Services Department. He will now be joining us, we're glad to say, as our sports director, filling the shoes where Kendall served in the past and overseeing those sports. So with that, Ryan officially starts in the next day, and then we'll get him up and running. But I want to introduce Ryan.
Coaches, thank you very much for being on tonight, taking your time. I just want to introduce myself. I am Ryan Kelchner. I'm replacing Kendall and trying to fill those shoes. She did a great job. I'm looking forward to working with all you guys and having a great long-distance running competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. So we'll go ahead and get started. The agenda is just some basics we're going to cover are the events for long-distance running, talk about certifications for coaches and others, as well as medicals for athletes, talk about some deadlines leading up to the season and throughout the season, the training components and how you can qualify and what the qualifying events are, some rules, reminders, and changes, any questions, and also go over some forms and policies and procedural things. The one thing I do want to also let you know is that this webinar is being recorded, and between Mike and myself, we'll be monitoring any questions that come in throughout the webinar. So if you have a question on the taskbar, you can click to raise your hand, and that will indicate that you have a question. Or in the questions field, you can actually type it in, and we can respond that way as well. If you have any questions that come up after the webinar or throughout the season or whatever, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help and get through everything together and make for a great experience for all the athletes and everybody else involved.
Okay, we'll fix that. That's still not it. Sorry, guys. I was trying to do something here. Just a minute. So, Steve, I'll tell you what, rather than us fighting with this, I apologize for that. Why don't we just go with this, showing the slide this way, and hopefully folks can see it fairly well.
Sounds good.
Okay, and you should be able to do the page down still.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mike. So yeah, one of the things with the start of any season or any practices before you get going, just to make sure that no athlete should be participating whatsoever without a valid medical. And again, with the volunteers, we want to make sure that they have their application in place so that the background checks can be done and other information. We'll talk about some of those certifications and stuff in a few other slides. But again, the main thing here is that no athlete should be training, participating whatsoever without a current and valid medical. With that being said, work with your area leadership. Your county or area director has access to the information to know who has what certifications and which athletes need new medicals. So just make contact with them and make sure that, again, you have that with you as a coach with any sport, there's always risk of injury. And if something happens, that you have that hard copy of the medical form with you, whether it's at a practice, a competition, if you're transporting from one location to another, so that if a situation comes up, you have quick access to that medical record and can share that with any medical or emergency personnel that may need to see that. So ask those questions. Make sure you have what you need as a coach at the beginning of the season, and double check everything with your area directors. This is a slide that talks about the different certifications where volunteers and coaches need. And we do want to thank Janet Larimore from Howard County for putting this visual together. It's much easier to see than 2 or 3 pages of this documentation or this information. So as assistant coaches, the volunteer orientation and the background check with that application that's submitted, protective behaviors, the concussion course, and coaching Special Olympics athletes or coaching unified sports. The other ones, the general volunteer, you can see that, and then each progression builds off of that baseline. So with a head coach, similar to an assistant coach, except you also have a sport-specific training session. Advanced coach, we put that in here, so it's all-inclusive. Primarily, those advanced coach requirements are for individuals who serve on going on to a World Games, possibly a USA or a National Games, and that type of thing. But again, always check with your leadership to make sure you're in compliance and you have everything you need. And if not, you can access that as well. Long distance running. So here's some deadlines leading up through the season. So the 29th of August is right around the corner. And that's when you want to make sure that your roster of athletes and partners, any coaches, etc., are in the database. So you want to ask your leadership, hey, can we get a report of who you have? And here's everyone that's in the long distance running training program. And that isn't just for individuals who intend to participate at the state championship. That's anybody who's training with that sport. We want to give the acknowledgments to all those who are training, whether or not they're going to compete or not. The next deadline is September 10th. And again, with all those forms we were talking about, we want to be ahead of the game and get everything in place. But if something, if there's issues or concerns, we will notify those when we do our checks to see here's what's missing. And at that point, after the 10th of September, that's the deadline for any missing forms. After that point, no one will be able to continue on to the state championships. The registration deadline is October 3rd. So that's when, again, you work with your area leadership, make sure that they submit everything to us for those who intend to participate at the Fall Sports Festival. That's not just a team roster. Everyone, as far as the athletes and partners are concerned, need to be registered in their given events, as well as submission of their qualifying times in said events. So work with your leadership to make sure all that's in place. The events offered we have for long distance running is the 1K run. We also have the 1K unified run, the 1500 meter run, the 3K, as well as a 3K unified relay, the 5K, and the 5K unified relay. These next couple slides are the courses that were used last year. So that's why it says TBD on these next slides. We hope we'll have some similar courses, but again, we need to have our management personnel do a visit to the university and the grounds to make sure there's no construction that has occurred since last year. There's no trees that are down, which occurred last year, etc. So this is just to give you a basic reminder of what the courses were last year and potentially what they'll be this year. As we get closer to the event in the preseason webinar, we will give you updates on the courses.
And Steve, hi folks, this is Mike Zarnowski. One thing to note with this, you can click through to the other courses as well. Again, we'll go into this in more detail at the pre-competition webinar. But one takeaway with this that you can utilize for your training is that the courses are going over a varied terrain. So for it, both pavement or asphalt and concrete, grass, gravel, etc. The 1K course also is almost flat, not 100%, but almost flat. So that if you have an athlete who can can run, but has challenges with going up and down hills and such from a balance standpoint, or whatever the challenge might be, that might be a good event for him or her to participate in. For the 3K, the 1500, the 5K, those all have a fair amount of up and down, again varying based on the distance, but there's a fair amount of hill work. I don't think there's anything of what I would call a killer hill, but there is some up and down, and again, all of them essentially have that varied terrain. So I would strongly recommend during your training time to be sure that your athletes have comfort level running on those varied surfaces, particularly if they haven't run on gravel. I would make sure that you find some place that they can practice that. There isn't a whole lot on gravel, but there's some and such. So looks like we do have a question here. Sorry, Steve, I'll give you this back. I believe we are. John has the question of if we're offering the 1500 unified. I believe we are. It might have gotten accidentally cut off the slide. John, we'll get back to you on that, but I believe that we are, yes.
Great. Thank you, John, and thank you, Mike. As we talked about for qualifying competitions leading up to the state championships, what is a qualifying competition? What's the purpose of it? That type of thing. The main thing here is we continue to hear back and feedback from the athlete input sessions that more competitions, and more competitions. If anybody of you were played sports or participated in sports leading up through your life, it's not fun as it used to be in Special Olympics to practice for 8 to 12 weeks and have one competition. I would not want to come back next year. So again, we want to provide as many competition opportunities to the athletes as possible. And what is a competition or a qualifying event? That's an event where a lot of things are in place in emulating a state championship level competition with the courses, the markings, the officials. You have medical personnel on site. You have the judges. You have the timers. Ideally, it's more than just one county hosting and turning a practice session into a qualifying event. Again, to create that competitive atmosphere so that the athletes are comfortable with that leading up to the state championship so they can perform at their peak performance level. However, I know it can be challenging at times. So an in-house qualifying event is allowable. And that's basically you turn a practice session into a competition opportunity. So again, as long as all of those things are in place and you submit a sanction form from your area director so we can put it on the calendar, and if there is an opportunity to invite other counties, we can let them know of that opportunity and again work together to do the best for our athletes. If you do not have all of those things that are mentioned here in the slide, it could nullify that event as a sanctioned qualifying competition, if you will. So again, the idea is that every athlete competes in a minimum of 2 competitions leading up to the state championships. I say minimum, as you heard me earlier, the more competitions, the better. The better the athletes are prepared for the environment at the state championship. So just work with us, and we can help you in aspects leading up to that, give you more information if and as needed. So again, qualifying for the state championships and the Fall Sports Festival, everyone needs to have their registrations, their certifications in place, the deadlines we mentioned earlier. And again, like I said, we want them to compete in at least 2 sanctioned events. One we want to have as a multi-area, meaning at least more than 1 county's there. The more the better. Again, work with each other and communicate with us, and we can get it out there and create a great season leading up to the Fall Sports Fest for the athletes and partners. Again, we talked about the in-house option, turning a practice into a competition opportunity, again, having everything in place. The key thing with those events is that the athletes and the partners are entering the distances and running the same events that they intend to run at the state championships. So again, we need those qualifying times and submitted scores leading up to the state championships for divisioning purposes. And it doesn't have to just be a Special Olympics competition. We'll talk about a couple other opportunities here in mainstream races or general community races that offer a 3K or a 5K, such as the Tunnel Run, the Running Festival. We'll hit a couple of those here. But if you're going to do one of those mainstream events, you must contact us and let us know, and we'll do a double check on it, make sure everything's in place. And you need our approval just to be able to count it as a sanctioned event for the athletes and partners. So with that being said, as of today, there's a couple that we are aware of. The Tunnel Run is October 6th. The 5K on the runway is a new event. That's September 28th. And the next two slides give you more details about those two events. At this time, we do have one sanction form that has been submitted through Howard County. They offer the 1500, the 5K, and a relay. That information will be on our coaches resource page on how to sign up, who to contact, but that will be at Howard County at Fulton at the Lime Kiln Middle School. So again, the information will be on the coaches resource page, which we'll talk about here in a minute. The other one is you can check the charmcityrun.com. I did check that earlier today. There are some 5K events and I believe some 3K events that they're hosting and running. I didn't look into detail as far as registration fees, etc., but that's just another resource available for anyone, whether it's athletes, partners, coaches, etc. So as I said, here's a little bit more detail about the 5K Tunnel Run. The important thing here is if you have athletes or partners who are going to use this as one of their events, in the blue little highlighted middle of the slide, when you go to register at www.tunnelrun.org, use the code you see there in the first bullet point, Athlete TR. That will eliminate any registration fees. The event for athletes and partners is free, but keep this amongst ourselves. There is also an opportunity for a premium item. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but if anyone so chooses to get the premium item at this event, that's the responsibility of the individual, and there is a $15 fee for that. But again, this is one of the events that we have had for many years, the Tunnel Run. Great event there. 5K on the runway is at Frederick Municipal Airport on the 28th. Similar to the 5K Tunnel Run, there's no registration for the athletes or partners if they're using it as an event, but they have to use the promo code you see at the very tail end of this slide, Athlete Runner, when they check out. So again, keep that in-house, if you will, as well, so it doesn't get out to everyone. We want to be respectful of their events as a fundraiser. We also have the link there to register for that event.
Okay. Steve, John, I'm going to open up your line. You can fill folks in on what you typed in. Give Steve a chance to take a breath.
Washington County is offering it. We're submitting the form right now for a qualifier on September 21st here in the Hagerstown area. It's actually in a little burg called Leitersburg. And we'll be offering the same events as that are going to be offered at the state competition. So if anybody is interested, we didn't realize our area director was in town. Otherwise, it would have been submitted earlier because we were waiting on her signature. So if you have any questions, you can email me or call me, either one. We'll be getting more information out on that as soon as that form gets sent to the state.
Okay. And hey, John, just to clarify for folks, because based on something you just said, just to clarify with the sanction forms, the area director doesn't actually have to sign them. there should be a thing at the bottom of the form, unless you're using a very old form, that says as long they can just send an email that says they approve of it. So for
Oh,
future reference,
okay.
the biggest thing we're trying to avoid, which had happened in the past, is a rogue coach, and I know you're one of those.
Absolutely.
Who just starts doing events and not talking to their area director and such. So that's the whole purpose behind that. We're not trying to make the area director push paper more than he or she has to. So
I would not dream of doing something behind Marva's back.
I know you would not, but just making sure others are aware. It's a simplified process. Just she can just send a note that says, "Yep, this is great," and you're good to go.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
And thank you very much for sharing that, John. We look forward to getting the sanction form, and then we can put it up on our coaches resource page and let everyone be aware of that. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but this webinar is being recorded, so we'll send out the slides. It'll be on our coaches resource page, as well as the audio of the webinar to go along with. So here we'll get into some of the rules. Long distance running basically follows the IAAF governing body and the USATF governing body for track and field or athletics. Long distance running falls into that subsection, so that's where we go. And then I'm going to address some of the uniform and attire. So, you know, obviously it's a sporting competition and you guys are all runners or you have the runners. So we want athletic attire, no jeans, anything like that, no khakis. You know, I've gone to other events around the country where, you know, they don't take that into consideration. And again, we want to showcase that the athletes are true sportsmen and sportswomen and, you know, dress appropriately. So athletic shorts or whatever, your singlet, your t-shirt, sweatshirt, whatever, weather pending. The main thing with that is that there's no advertisement, as Special Olympics doesn't allow that. We want them to have a Special Olympics, obviously, uniform on. So with any pictures or whatever, your county gets the proper representation with any social media, etc. You know, if people want to wear a timing watch or whatever for their own purposes, that's permitted, but no jewelry or previous medals, ribbons, headphones, that type of stuff. One exception with the jewelry is a medical alert bracelet. Obviously, we will allow that. Stud earrings and flat rings on the fingers are at the discretion of the official. I want to make sure, again, that safety is paramount in all of our competitions. So the other thing is, you know, it's up to the individual choice to wear shoes or run barefoot. Again, depending on the climate, but also knowing that there is gravel and you never know what's out in the field, whatever. So we highly encourage proper footwear. But no, yeah, you know, no work boots, street shoes, that kind of stuff. So you guys know the drill there. I'm going to turn it over to Mike to talk a few things here specifically on start commands and how the course will be set up and go into some specific rules.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So, and again, these are things that I'm sure you all are aware. There are no changes to anything we've been doing. We're just clarifying and making sure it's documented. So all the races will have a mass start. All the races of a given distance will have a mass start, regardless of what the division is that the person is in. At this point in time, the number of runners, we don't anticipate that to change dramatically, and there's a large enough area that we can make as wide of a start line as we might need to do that. And since it's most likely that at the local event or any competitions you're hosting, you'll have fewer athletes in a given race than we'll have at the championship, we strongly encourage that you do that as well. Just a single mass start with that. With that in mind, also, there should be a reasonably long, I think ideally it's 100 meters, I'd have to double check, of straightaway where there can get a little bit of separation before you have a turn in there as well. And again, having the course open for inspection and review at the state championship, you can certainly do that. Actually, you can do that up until a certain point and get out there. They could run the course if they wanted to. we again recommend that you do that as well at any of your competitions. It's a good thing, and that's a great opportunity if you go out there with your runners to talk a little race strategy as well. So coaches, family members, etc., are not allowed out on the course, and you should not in your competitions the same as well. And they are not allowed to or permitted to run with an athlete or partners unless they're obviously if they're a registered unified partner for that particular race for that team. That's not saying that you can't have spectator space at various points along the race. In fact, that's a great thing if your courses allow you to do that. But just the folks should not be running with the athletes if they're not a registered unified partner for that race for that athlete. And that could lead to a disqualification based on an assistance call. For marking the course, and again, what we do at the state championship, so you're prepared with your folks, is we use large orange traffic cones where I believe the way Ron has it set up is that the cone's always on runner's left. However you decide to mark it, that's obviously the choice of the host, but I would strongly recommend that you let coaches know ahead of time. You can put that on your sanction form even, since the sanction form, if you aren't aware of it, on the coach's resource page, this is not just for distance running, it's for all of the competitions. We take your sanction form and pop it there, linked with your competition, so that anybody who is going to compete can get it, have the directions, have the time, the rough time and such. And I would put that on there somewhere as a note, how the course is going to be marked, so they can adequately prepare their athletes and unified partners for that. Yeah, that pretty much covers that there. For the run, walk, and the relays, for the run walk, we should probably clarify that first bullet. For the run walk, the two partners or the two members of the team have to finish within 5 seconds of each other. So they should be running together throughout the course. That's the purpose of that, and that's why we use that unified format in the shorter races, because they're more for developing runners, where the athlete might need a partner running with him or her to maintain their time. The final score is the combined time of both runners. They can, if they wish, hold or touch hands, that type of thing, but that is not required. They just need to be the judge in terms of what's best for your athlete and I'm sure you would, but just need to say it, just make sure it's dignified as well. With that in mind, also the partner, or I guess the athlete can't pull the partner along, but the partner can't be pulling the athlete either, or carrying, or any other type of unsafe activity that's there. Yeah, if I was Candy's partner, I know she'd drag me along the race because she'd be much faster than me. Anyway, when it comes to the relays as well, we are using a baton, and there is a 30-meter exchange zone. No, there's not lanes. There'll just be an exchange zone right by the start-finish area that'll be marked off on the grass, within which the baton needs to be exchanged. The baton exchange follows all the same rules as on a track. Whoever drops it needs to pick it up, and so that it's that person's responsibility until it's the incoming runner's responsibility until it's a clean handoff, and then the other person takes it. It's the position of the baton between the exchange zone lines that matters, not the runners. So again, all the same rules that apply to exchange zones on the track will apply here for this. So we offered this last year. We didn't have any takers. Hopefully we'll have some folks who are interested in doing that. It doesn't matter who runs first. And just to clarify, if you didn't remember, so the 3K and the 5K, which is where the relay is offered, there are 2 loops around the given course. So one of the members of the team would run 1 loop, and then the other member of the team would run the second loop. They'd have the exchange at the start-finish area, and then the other runner on the team would run the second part of the second loop there. It does not matter who runs first and who runs second with that as well. So it's at your discretion. So so hopefully we'll get some entries on that. I don't know that any other folks are doing it. I think it's a neat addition and adds an additional competitive edge or competitive component to the competitions and a new opportunity for folks. So give that some thought, and hopefully some folks will have that opportunity. Steve, I'll go back to you for this, for the codes of conduct and such.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, code of conduct for coaches. I know we've got a lot of returning coaches, so this is here more for reference, but just to explain, you guys all know as coaches, you're the leaders, athletes, partners, other family members, other coaches look to you guys as examples. And, showing that leadership, showing that calm demeanor, showing that respect for everyone, including officials, management, other volunteers, it just, permeates throughout all of the people there in attendance. So, if you're frustrated and that's starting to show, then the athletes may get frustrated as well. Other family members they may not know the situation. So it's just a reminder, as a leader, people look to you. With the code, and have the codes of conduct there. Basically, you're creating a positive experience for the athletes, and again, just respect for all. Mike, there you go. Again, like I said, just we're all responsible for our actions, and we want to act professionally to all people involved with the event. The quality and service to all the athletes and partners that you're overseeing and training, and providing this opportunity for the athletes and partners. The number one thing always that's paramount is the health and safety of the competitors. So we always take anything that we can do as far as safety, whether it's hydration, warm clothes if it's a cold event, proper footwear, etc. The one thing that we also say is this is just the coach's code of conduct. We also have available a family and spectator code of conduct, an athlete and unified partner code of conduct, etc. So this is just designated for the coaches, but there are other codes of conduct that people will be held accountable to. We don't anticipate having any issues, but again, we just remind you guys that you guys are leaders, and you know that. We appreciate everything you do, and moving forward, we just want to create that great example for everyone within your program to live up to. So a couple of resources we have for you here. At the bottom is the websites for the governing body, as well as our Special Olympics main website. We also have the coaches resource page, which Mike had referred to earlier. That takes you straight to long distance running. You can also go to our main website if you have any challenges, and you'll just click on one of the top tabs on our website that says Coach. That has a drop down with Coach's Resource. You can click on that, and that'll take you to different opportunities to see resources there for you guys. There's no password needed, no username, as previous things have been in place. This is open to the public. Again, that's where once we get the sanction form that John was talking about, with Marva's approval, we will post that and get that available so everyone has John's information to contact him and hopefully get registered for that event.
Steve, one note on that, the distance running page is actually part of the overall athletics page. We need to do a little rearranging on that. So in the next day or two, we'll have the things that are specifically related to distance running at the top of the page for you guys there. So right now it's just the regular athletics page, but we will make that adjustment.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And again, with that resource page, I know some of you were leading up to summer games and have coached in other events. Hopefully you've checked it out by now, and it's been a resource for you guys. It's not perfect by any imagination. However, we're working together with you guys. If there's things that you think should be on there that aren't currently, or anything that you think would be helpful to other coaches that may not be accessible through this website, please let us know. It's something we've just instituted over the last couple months. We've had a lot of great feedback. but we're always continuing to look at new opportunities or new sharing of information. So don't hesitate to give us a holler. Let us know if there's anything that we might have missed accidentally and that we can put it up there for other coaches. My bad. The other thing is with the event guide, once that gets finished and publicized, we'll put that on the website. We'll also distribute that electronically. And we also have our pre-competition webinar coming up on October 9th at 8 o'clock. And there's a link where you can go ahead and register for that as well. This time I want to see if there's any questions we currently have. I know we had a few comments there from John, and we appreciate your participation and information and sharing that information, John. I don't see any questions at this time. But again, as I said, if you have any questions, we have a few more slides to go through, but if you have any questions moving forward, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Mike, as well as Ryan, once he officially becomes on board in the next couple of days. So these are just some reference slides. Again, we talked about the athlete's medical and others, all the forms that need to be in place. So this is just referencing that once again. The acceptable credentials for individuals performing those medical services and examinations for the participants. And we have Dottie, who works here at our office as a registration coordinator, who accepts those medicals, updates them into our database system. If there's any issues, she reports those back out to the county leaders and area leaders to get any updates that are needed. As coaches, we mentioned that you should have the medical forms of your athletes with you at all times within Special Olympics events. This is just an example so you're familiar with it. Again, the area directors should have these ready and available to you. So just kind of showing you what they look like for your reference. The emergency care refusal form, if anyone refuses, as an adult of an athlete or as an adult athlete, they can refuse medical care, but that we need to have this in place so that we have that documentation. Again, with the volunteers, the application, protective behaviors, concussion, all of that for their information depending on what their level of involvement is. Again, this is all for the health and safety of the individuals, yourselves, as well as the athletes, partners, and other volunteers that are within your program. This is a volunteer application. Hopefully all of you guys have seen this. But again, if you have any new recruits as volunteers, new people want to get involved, we're always looking for new blood in the organization, so don't hesitate to do some recruitment when you're out at different events or wherever you may go within your community.
Yeah, and actually, as Steve's clicking through there, blank copies of all of these forms. You'll get the slides in the next day or so, but also blank copies of all these forms are available on the coach resource page for you to download. So you can also, and again, that's open to the public. So if you have an athlete who's or a volunteer who needs a form, you can direct them there, and they can download it, fill it out, and submit it through your area's process.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that addition, Mike. And one of the other forms, along with the athlete medicals and stuff, we want you to have with you at all times is incident report form. And this is could be anything from an injury that occurs, so that we can follow up with insurance and make sure everyone's good to go, or any follow-up that's needed. And it's not just an injury to a body. It can be damage to property, whether it's a facility you may be using and somebody accidentally drops something and breaks a tile on the floor, or breaks a window, or whatever happens. Make sure we have this so we can let the facility know immediately, and then we can submit that from an insurance perspective to the powers to be to make sure we have records of all of that. With that being said, here's a copy of that form. Again, there has been times where in an emergency situation, a medical personnel arrives, you give them the athlete medical, and somebody goes off with them in an emergency situation, and you cannot fill all of this out. Most of the time, if you can fill this out before anyone departs, that's the best practice. It can be difficult sometimes to do the loop and after the incident occurred, you have to go back and then fill out all this paperwork. It's really one page, but if you can do it on site and submit it to your area director that evening or that day or the next day, that's the process there. But again, just be familiar with this and try to have one of these with you wherever you may go. For questions, currently, only for another day or two, I'm your reference for any questions with long distance running with our management team and other contacts. Ryan will be taking over, and I know he'll be learning as well as working with you guys to make the best possible experience. And we will share his information, contact information with you as well. But this is, again, our coaches resource page and other sports directors listed there with their fall season sports, Zach Centron and Melissa Anger. So that if you have any other questions about the other sports, don't hesitate to reach out to those individuals. With that said, Ryan, on behalf of Ryan, myself, Mike, all of the individuals from Special Olympics Maryland, on behalf of the athletes and partners, we thank you not only for joining us tonight, but what you guys do as coaches. Without coaches, Special Olympics doesn't happen. It's through your efforts and your dedication that provides the opportunities for the athletes to showcase their skills, their joy, their camaraderie, their passion, what Special Olympics is all about. So we thank you. We know there's several people on the webinar tonight that not only serve in a coach's role for long distance running, but many other sports throughout the year. And again, that shows us that you guys are dedicated to the athletes, you're passionate, and we can't do it without you. We're here to serve you. So as I said earlier, any questions, any comments, anything that we can do to help work together to make it a best experience for anyone, whether it's volunteers, yourselves as coaches, partners, athletes, we're here to work together. So don't hesitate to reach out. With that, we'll do one last check for any questions. And I currently don't see any. So with that, again, thank you so much for your time this evening. Have a great competition, opportunities coming up. Have a great season. We look forward to seeing you out in the field. And thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you out there soon.